New Mexico Territory, 1879. The wind came hard off the mesas, full of red dust and heat sharp as iron. It pushed through the dead yucca stalks, hissed across the dry wash, and made the lone windmill above Elias Crane's ranch squeal, like an old memory refusing to die. He rode slow beneath that sound, his dun mare lifting small ghosts of sand with each step. The sun hung low, the color of brass. Elias hadn't spoken to a living soul in 6 days, and that was just the way he liked it. Until he saw the tracks that didn't belong, and remembered what it felt like to be haunted by more than silence. He found the prints by accident, cut deep in the cracked clay. A man's boot, and something lighter beside it. Maybe a woman's foot dragged half through. He leaned down, touched the edge, dry as bone. Too fresh. His voice sounded foreign, small against the wide desert. A crow called once from a dead branch. Elias spat into the dirt, adjusted his hat, and kept following the trail south, toward the cottonwoods that clawed at the horizon like black fingers. The smell came first, smoke and copper. Then the sound, wood creaking, slow, rhythmic, like something swaying where it shouldn't. He reined in. The mare tossed her head. The creek bed below was lined with white stones, and one shadow that didn't move right. Elias climbed down, rifle in hand. The heat shimmered around him, bending the air. Under the biggest cottonwood hung a figure, small, thin, arms pulled above her, wrists bound with rough rope. Her feet barely brushed the dirt. A tattered buckskin dress clung to her legs. The skin of her shoulders was burnt and cracked. Above her head, a wooden board hung crooked, words slashed in red paint. "White man don't forgive." Elias stopped breathing. Wind kicked through the branches, and the board thumped the trunk like a heartbeat. No horses, no campfire, just dust and a single fly whining over her face. She moved, barely. A tremor in the ribs, a breath that forgot how to live. Jesus. He dropped his rifle, stepped forward, and pulled his knife. The rope was old mesquite fiber, coarse and dry. He cut once, hard. The girl fell limp into his arms, lighter than she should have been, hot with fever. He brushed hair from her face. She was young, maybe 18, with dark hair matted in blood and dust. On her wrist, beneath the torn skin, a scar shaped like a spiral flame wrapping a bird's wing. Something old stirred in him then. Smoke. Screaming. A burning tent. His own boots running away. He blinked it off, poured a few drops of water onto her cracked lips. Her eyelids fluttered. For an instant her eyes met his, black and sharp as obsidian. "You hear me, girl?" No answer, only the shallow rise and fall of her chest. He looked up again at the sign. "White man don't forgive." The words felt heavier than wood. He'd seen hate painted before, but never like this. Like a curse meant for whoever found it. He tied the mare to a branch, scanned the ridges. "Someone wanted this found," he said, "and someone wanted her dead slow." Elias wrapped his coat around her shoulders. She shivered once, then went still again. He tried to lift her. "You ain't got no reason left to trust me," he murmured. "But you ain't dying here." The sun slipped lower. Long shadows stretched across the wash. As he placed her in the saddle, she whispered a single word, soft and cracked. "Firebird." He froze. His heart stumbled. Firebird. He'd heard that word years ago, whispered in smoke, when his unit rode through an Apache camp at dawn. He'd never told anyone he was there. Elias looked toward the horizon. The mesas glowed red, the same red as that paint on the sign. Somewhere far off, a rifle cracked once. Faint, but real. He swung into the saddle, holding the girl steady in front of him. "Hang on," he said to no one in particular. The mare snorted, uneasy. Elias turned north, toward his ranch. The wind followed, dragging dust behind, like smoke from an old sin. The ride back was long and heavy. Every rustle made him reach for his gun. The girl flinched in half-dream, whispering words in Apache he couldn't understand. He caught only one name, Nantan. "Is that you?" he asked. No reply. By the time the windmill appeared, a crooked silhouette against the blood-orange sky, the sun had almost drowned. Elias dismounted, carried her inside his small shack, laid her on the cot. The boards creaked beneath the weight of two lives that didn't belong together. Outside, the windmill groaned again, slow and sorrowful. He glanced once more at her wrist, the bird and flame scar. "Firebird," he repeated, quieter this time, as if the word might burn his tongue. Coyote started singing, far and broken. Elias stood by the door, staring out at the empty desert he'd thought was safe. The same wind that brought him here once was whispering again, asking if a man could ever outrun what he'd done. Then hoofbeats, faint but certain, coming from the south. He blew out the lamp, reached for the rifle. The mare nickered, restless. The girl stirred. "Who's coming?" she whispered. Elias didn't answer. He stepped onto the porch, rifle raised. The sound drew closer, echoing across the wash. One rider, or maybe two. He exhaled slow. "Looks like the desert ain't done with me yet." Hoofbeats echoed along the dry wash, sharp and sure. Elias Crane stood on the porch, rifle low, watching the dust climb like smoke from old sins. Two riders broke from the ridge, long coats snapping in the wind, badges catching the light. "Evening, Crane," one called. "Heard you got company. Strange kind." Elias didn't move. "Strange is all I got left." The tall one, scar on his chin, eyes mean, swung down. "Looking for an Apache girl. Took a rifle, maybe a life. Might have passed your way." Elias shifted the rifle to his shoulder. "You got a warrant?" The man grinned. "Don't need one for her kind." Inside the shack, Taya stirred. The second rider circled toward the barn, hand near his holster. The air felt tight. "She's worth $50 if breathing," the first said. "You seen her?" Elias spat dust. Ain't seen $50 in years. The man's grin cracked. His partner shouted, "Barn's clear!" Then, "Mind if we look inside?" Elias raised the rifle an inch. "I mind plenty." Silence. Wind pushed grit through their boots. The man studied him, then backed off. "No need for trouble. You always were touchy." Elias didn't answer. He watched them ride off until dust swallowed their shapes. Only then did he lower the gun. Inside, Taya sat upright under his coat, dark eyes fixed. "You lied." "Guess I did." "Why?" He poured water into a tin cup. "Didn't feel like justice." She drank slow, never looking away. The fire in her stare wasn't trust, just heat refusing to die. Outside, the windmill moaned. Elias scanned the ridge. "They'll bring others." "Then let me go." "Can't ride in your state." "I'll walk." "You won't last a mile." She held his gaze. "Maybe I don't care." He crouched, wrapped her wrists with cloth cut from an old shirt. The scars were deep, ringed red. She didn't flinch. "What's your name?" "Taya Nantan." He nodded. "Elias Crane." Silence filled the cracks between them. "You got people?" he asked. "Had." Her voice flat. "They burned our camp. Said we stole water." "Water?" "The river by Cottonwood Flats. My father's land." He froze. "I rode there once." "With soldiers?" He didn't reply. The answer sat heavy enough. He stepped outside, lit a smoke. The match flame flickered like guilt. When he came back, she was watching. "Why'd they hang me by the wrists?" He set the matchbox down. "To make you hurt longer." She stared at him. "Then they'll come for you next." Elias sat, started sharpening his knife on a whetstone. The rasp filled the room. Wouldn't be the first time. Minutes passed. Coyotes cried somewhere far. He stopped the blade, said quietly, "Whoever tied you wanted someone to find you." Her eyes narrowed. "You think that someone was you?" "Seems that way." She turned her face to the wall. "You were at Dust Hollow, I remember. White horse, same eyes." He went still. The knife slipped, nicking his thumb. "You sure?" "I don't forget faces," she said. Thunder rolled distant, though the sky was dry. He stood, wiping blood on his sleeve. "Then maybe I earned this." Night settled thick. He sat near the door, rifle across his knees. Sleep came in shards. Sometime past midnight, the mare whinnied. Elias snapped awake, grabbed the rifle. Two shadows moved near the corral. He whispered, "Stay down." Taya clutched the blanket, eyes wide. Outside, a voice called soft, "Crane, we just want to talk." He eased the door open. "Talkin's easier in daylight." The answer came as a gunshot, wood splintering beside his head. He dropped to one knee, fired back twice. Sparks leapt from rock. Echoes rolled through the canyon like thunder. He waited, breath steady. Then, a scrape of boots, a groan. Silence. He crept to the fence. One body lay face down in the dust, hat rolled away. The second rider was gone. Behind him, Taya stood in the doorway, shadow thin against the lamplight. "They'll keep coming," she said. He nodded. "Then we keep breathing." The wind picked up, carrying the smell of rain that never fell. Elias looked toward the south ridge, where Dust Hollow lay beyond the dark. The wind had died by dawn, leaving the land too still. Elias Crane stood by the trough, washing blood off his hands, until the water turned pink, then brown, then nothing but dust again. The dead rider lay 100 yards off, half covered by sand. He'd dig the grave later, when the heat rose enough to make the smell unbearable. For now, he looked toward the shack. One lamp still flickering, the shape of the Apache girl motionless inside. He walked in slow, boots whispering on warped boards. Taya Nantan sat on the cot, his coat wrapped around her shoulders. Her hair was loose now, black against the pale blanket. She watched him, but said nothing. "Didn't sleep much," he said. "Neither did I." He poured coffee into a tin cup, handed it to her. She sniffed it, suspicious. "It's coffee," he said. "Not a trick." She took a sip, grimaced, and swallowed anyway. "Tastes like smoke." "Everything does out here." For a long minute, the only sound was the windmill creaking outside, lazy and off rhythm. Elias sat on a stool, rubbing oil into the rifle's chamber. "You remember any of what happened? Before I found you?" Her gaze stayed steady. "I remember the tree, the men who laughed, the one who carved the sign. He said you'd come." Elias stopped moving. "Me?" She nodded once. "Said the white man who burned our camp would see what forgiveness looks like." He let out a slow breath. "Guess I'm popular." Taya set the cup down. "You were there." Elias looked up. "I was part of a scouting party years back. Didn't know what they meant to do." "You rode with them." "I rode where I was ordered." "And you watched." He didn't answer. The silence said enough. Taya stood, the coat slipping from her shoulders. "You think cutting me down makes you clean?" He looked at the dirt floor. "No, but maybe it's a start." Outside, the sky went white with heat. Elias stepped out, grabbed a shovel, and dug the grave by the fence. Each strike of metal hit stone, loud and steady. When it was done, he rolled the dead man in, covered him with dry soil. Coyotes would dig him up by night, but that wasn't Elias's problem. He came back inside, sweat cutting lines through the dust on his face. Taya was standing by the window, watching the desert stretch toward forever. "You can go," he said quietly, "soon as you're strong enough." "I have nowhere to go." "There's always somewhere." She shook her head. "Not for people like me." Elias glanced at the table. The old map lay there, folded, edges burnt from years of use. He tapped it with a finger. "There's a town west, Caliche Bend. Doctor, supplies. I can get you there." "You'd take me into a town full of men who'd hang me again?" He met her eyes. "I've been in worse company." Taya gave a dry half-smile that vanished as quick as it came. Why do you care, Crane? Maybe I don't. Maybe I'm just tired of ghosts. She turned toward him. Then stop chasing them. He couldn't. He knew that. Instead, he said, You're still burning up. Lie down. She hesitated, then did. He dipped a cloth in the basin, placed it on her forehead. Her skin was hot to the touch. The scent of dust and sweat filled the room. Your people, he said. You mentioned water. Taya's voice came faint. The river ran through our valley. Soldiers dammed it for the mines. My father begged them. They said we could move or die. We stayed. Elias stared at the floorboards. Norcross mine? Yes. Time 400 pm. He rubbed a hand over his face. I rode security for Norcross once, years back. Then you rode for the men who killed my brothers. Her words cut clean. He didn't deny it. You still believe the desert forgets? She asked. No, he said. But maybe it forgives slow. For a while neither spoke. The only sound was the windmill squeaking and the soft breath of someone not sure whether to live or not. Later, when she slept, Elias stepped outside, leaned on the post. The sky had turned copper. Heat shimmered off the sand, making the world look like it was still burning. He thought of Dust Hollow, of the night they'd lit the tents, of his sister crying from inside a barn while he ran the wrong way. He reached into his coat, pulled out the small wooden cross he'd carved years ago. The edges were worn smooth. He turned it over once, then slipped it back. A distant rumble drew his eyes east. Dust rising again. More riders. Maybe 3 this time. He counted their pace, too organized to be drifters. Soldiers, he thought. Or worse. He stepped back inside, grabbed his rifle. We've got company. Taya sat up, weak but alert. How many? Enough. Fort men? Could be. She reached for his revolver on the table. He watched her hand close around it, steady despite the bruises. You know how to use that? She checked the cylinder, then looked up. I do. He gave a quick nod. Good. Keep it pointed away from me. Outside, the hoofbeats grew clearer. Measured, official. Elias moved to the door, heart steady now. The desert stretched before him, empty and waiting. Whatever this is, he said without turning, it started long before us. Taya answered from behind. Then maybe we end it. The first shout came from beyond the ridge. House ahead! Stay sharp! Elias cocked the rifle, exhaled once. The windmill groaned again, same note as before, like metal remembering pain. He whispered, Welcome to the ranch. By mid-morning, the sky had bleached white, the air thick enough to chew. Elias Crane waited on the porch, rifle resting across his knees, watching 3 cavalry riders crest the ridge. The lead man wore an officer's hat and posture too proud for this country. He raised a hand in casual greeting, like they were old friends. Lieutenant Harlan Pike, Elias murmured. The name tasted like dust. The riders slowed near the fence, horses sweating, boots scraping stirrups. Pike swung down, polished, calm, the kind of calm that meant trouble. "Fine place you've got, Crane," Pike said. "Didn't figure you for the domestic sort." Elias shrugged. "Ranch keeps me busy." "Busy hiding ghosts, maybe." Pike smiled thin. "Mind if I come in?" "I do mind." Pike stepped closer anyway, spurs clicking. "We're tracking an Apache girl. Escaped custody last week. Dangerous. Cut a corporal's throat, stole a horse. Some folks say she's been seen near your spread." Elias didn't blink. "You trust some folks too easy." The lieutenant looked past him toward the shack. "Then you won't mind if I take a look." Elias rose slowly, rifle loose but clear. "You step 1 foot through that door, Pike, and we're talking funerals." For a moment neither man moved. Heat shimmered between them. Finally Pike nodded to his men. "Easy now. No need for dramatics." He studied Elias. "You still owe me a drink from the old days." Elias's voice stayed flat. "Those days are dead." Pike smirked. "Nothing dies out here. Just gets buried under new lies." He glanced toward the well. "How's the water holding? Heard this valley's drying up." "Shame. You could have sold rights to Norcross Company. Made yourself comfortable." "I'm comfortable enough." Pike dusted his gloves. "If you see the girl, send word to the fort. Justice has to start somewhere." Elias met his stare. "And end somewhere, too." The lieutenant chuckled, mounted up. "Still quoting sermons, Crane. Guess we all make peace our own way." He tipped his hat. "Be seeing you." The 3 riders disappeared into the glare, leaving only hoof scars in the dirt. Inside, Taya stood by the window, pale against the shadow. "Who was he?" "Lieutenant Pike," Elias said. "Ran patrols near your camp back then." She nodded slowly. "He knows." "Maybe, but he's not sure. If he was, we'd both be dead." Taya moved closer to the table where Pike's dust had settled. "You knew him before?" "I rode under him a season. Thought he wanted peace. Turns out he wanted water." She traced the map with one finger, stopping at the old river line. "This," she said, "they damned it. My father warned them the ground would crack." Elias looked at the marks, the faint ink circle labeled Norcross Claim. "That's the same name on my pay ledger." "You worked for them?" "Guard duty. Thought I was protecting miners from raids. Never saw who we were stealing from." Taya stared. "You really didn't know?" "I tried not to." Outside, a hawk screamed, circling low over the corral. Elias poured water into a cup, then hesitated. "Barely half left." "You ever wonder," Taya said quietly, "why your well's been drying?" He looked up. "You think they're taking it?" "They've been taking it since the first dam." He sank onto the stool. The sound of the windmill groaning seemed heavier now, like the desert itself complaining. Taya picked up the tin cup, drank one swallow. "He'll come back." "I know. They always come back to finish the burning." Elias rubbed a hand across his beard. Then we need to be gone before he does. Where would you run? Town west. Caliche Bend. Friend might help. Friend? Isaiah Boone. Blacksmith. Used to be cavalry, too. Knows which end of the law bites. She nodded once. And when Pike returns, I'll leave him a ghost to talk to. He opened a drawer, pulled out a small wooden box. Inside lay a folded piece of paper, an old discharge order with Pike's signature at the bottom. He'd kept it for no good reason until now. Guess I owe that man one more favor, Elias muttered. Taya looked toward the door. You can't fight them all. I don't need to. Just make them think I can. The rest of the day passed heavy. Elias fixed the saddle, packed dried meat, cartridges, and the map. At sundown, the desert burned copper again. When he went to check the fence line, he noticed something new. Fresh boot prints near the trough, smaller than his. A mark carved into the post. A triangle with a slash through it. He stared at it a long time. Not soldiers. Bounty men. He went back inside. We ride at first light. Taya sat cross-legged on the cot, tracing the scar on her wrist. They'll follow. Then we'll give them dust to follow. She met his eyes. What about Pike? Elias closed the door, bolted it. He'll bring the desert with him. Let him. Outside, the horizon flickered with distant lightning. Dry storm, no rain. The windmill groaned one last time, then stilled. Taya whispered, Dust Hollow will burn again. Elias loaded the rifle, set it by the bed. Not if I burn first. By mid-morning, the sky had bleached white, the air thick enough to chew. Elias Crane waited on the porch, rifle resting across his knees, watching 3 cavalry riders crest the ridge. The lead man wore an officer's hat and posture too proud for this country. He raised a hand in casual greeting, like they were old friends. Lieutenant Harlan Pike, Elias murmured. The name tasted like dust. The riders slowed near the fence, horses sweating, boots scraping stirrups. Pike swung down, polished, calm, the kind of calm that meant trouble. Fine place you've got, Crane, Pike said. Didn't figure you for the domestic sort. Elias shrugged. Ranch keeps me busy. Busy hiding ghosts, maybe. Pike smiled thin. Mind if I come in? I do mind. Pike stepped closer anyway, spurs clicking. We're tracking an Apache girl, escaped custody last week. Dangerous. Cut a corporal's throat, stole a horse. Some folks say she's been seen near your spread. Elias didn't blink. You trust some folks too easy. The lieutenant looked past him toward the shack. Then you won't mind if I take a look. Elias rose slowly, rifle loose but clear. You step 1 foot through that door, Pike, and we're talking funerals. For a moment, neither man moved. Heat shimmered between them. Finally, Pike nodded to his men. Easy now. No need for dramatics. He studied Elias. You still owe me a drink from the old days. Elias's voice stayed flat. Those days are dead. Pike smirked. Nothing dies out here. Just gets buried under new lies. He glanced toward the well. How's the water holding? Heard this valley's drying up. Shame. You could have sold rights to Norcross Company. Made yourself comfortable. I'm comfortable enough, Pike dusted his gloves. If you see the girl, send word to the fort. Justice has to start somewhere. Elias met his stare. And end somewhere, too. The lieutenant chuckled, mounted up. Still quoting sermons, Crane? Guess we all make peace our own way. He tipped his hat. Be seeing you. The three riders disappeared into the glare, leaving only hoof scars in the dirt. Inside, Taya stood by the window, pale against the shadow. Who was he? Lieutenant Pike, Elias said. Ran patrols near your camp back then. She nodded slowly. He knows. Maybe, but he's not sure. If he was, we'd both be dead. Taya moved closer to the table where Pike's dust had settled. You knew him before? I rode under him a season. Thought he wanted peace. Turns out he wanted water. She traced the map with one finger, stopping at the old river line. This, she said, they damned it. My father warned them the ground would crack. Elias looked at the marks, the faint ink circle labeled Norcross Claim. That's the same name on my pay ledger. You worked for them? Guard duty. Thought I was protecting miners from raids. Never saw who we were stealing from. Taya stared. You really didn't know? I tried not to. Outside, a hawk screamed, circling low over the corral. Elias poured water into a cup, then hesitated. Barely half left. You ever wonder, Taya said quietly, why your well's been drying? He looked up. You think they're taking it? They've been taking it since the first dam. He sank onto the stool. The sound of the windmill groaning seemed heavier now, like the desert itself complaining. Taya picked up the tin cup, drank one swallow. He'll come back. I know. They always come back to finish the burning. Elias rubbed a hand across his beard. Then we need to be gone before he does. Where would you run? Town west. Kalish Bend. Friend might help. Friend. Isaiah Boone. Blacksmith. Used to be cavalry, too. Knows which end of the law bites. She nodded once. And when Pike returns, I'll leave him a ghost to talk to. He opened a drawer, pulled out a small wooden box. Inside lay a folded piece of paper, an old discharge order with Pike's signature at the bottom. He'd kept it for no good reason until now. Guess I owe that man one more favor, Elias muttered. Taya looked toward the door. You can't fight them all. I don't need to. Just make them think I can. The rest of the day passed heavy. Elias fixed the saddle, packed dried meat, cartridges, and the map. At sundown, the desert burned copper again. When he went to check the fence line, he noticed something new. Fresh boot prints near the trough, smaller than his. A mark carved into the post, a triangle with a slash through it. He stared at it a long time. Not soldiers. Bounty men. He went back inside. We ride at first light. Taya sat cross-legged on the cot, tracing the scar on her wrist. They'll follow. Then we'll give them dust to follow. She met his eyes. What about Pike? Elias closed the door, bolted it. He'll bring the desert with him. Let him. Outside, the horizon flickered with distant lightning. Dry storm, no rain. The windmill groaned one last time, then stilled. Taya whispered, "Dust Hollow will burn again." Elias loaded the rifle, set it by the bed. Not if I burn first. The sun had barely cracked the horizon when Elias Crane saddled the mare. The desert shimmered pale gold, still cool before the burn. Taya Nantan stood by the doorway, his coat draped around her like borrowed armor. She said nothing while he packed jerky, water, a handful of shells. "You sure you can ride?" "I can bleed and still walk," she said. "Good enough." They moved out as the windmill creaked one last slow turn behind them. The ranch shrank into the distance, one crooked roof swallowed by dust. By midday, the light turned merciless. They stopped in a shallow arroyo where shade gathered like mercy. Elias poured a capful of water, passed it over. She drank, then handed it back. He nodded toward the bandage on her wrist. "That mark," he said, "the bird and fire. It means something?" Taya crouched, drew in the dirt with a stick. A bird with wings outstretched, flames curling around its body. "My people call it the firebird," she said, "symbol of our family. We were keepers of water." "Keepers?" "We watched the river, kept it clean, shared it. When the soldiers dammed it for the mines, my father said the desert would take revenge." She brushed the drawing smooth with her hand. "It did. On us." Elias leaned back against the rock wall. "Heard the story different. Said the Apache attacked a survey crew." "That's what they tell you so you can sleep." He studied her face. Too young to hold that much loss. "How old were you?" 13. I watched the river turn black from the ashes." For a long time, neither spoke. The sound of a hawk circled above, fading east. "You ever think of leaving?" he asked. "Leave where?" "The land remembers." Elias rubbed the dust between his fingers. "Maybe forgetting's the only way we keep breathing." She looked at him sharply. "And forget what you did?" He said nothing. When the shadows lengthened, they rode again. By dusk, the first lanterns of Caliche Bend flickered in the valley below. Elias pointed toward the cluster of roofs and smoke. "Town's rough," he said. "Keep your head down, talk less than I do." "Hard to talk less than that," she said, dry. He almost smiled. They reached the outskirts as the saloon piano clanged off-key. Men's laughter spilled into the street, thick with whiskey. A mangy dog trotted past, ribs showing. Elias dismounted, tied the mare near the blacksmith's shed. Sparks flew inside, each hammer strike loud and sure. A tall black man turned, sweat gleaming on his forearms. "Well, I'll be damned," he said. "Elias Crane. I thought you were bones by now." Elias grinned faintly. "Boone. Still hitting iron for sinners? Pays better than preaching." Boone wiped his hands. His eyes flicked to Taya. "That trouble or salvation?" "Bit of both." Boone's expression tightened. You're dragging a storm behind you, friend. Wouldn't be the first time. He led them into the back, away from the street. Word is Pike's boys are sniffing around. And Kersey, the deputy, he's got his nose buried in Norcross's pocket. Figured as much, Elias said. Need medicine, bandages, and a place to lay low. Boone nodded. I'll see what I can trade. But Crane, don't linger. Folks here love a hanging more than a sermon. While Boone stepped out, Taya wandered the forge, eyes tracing every tool. She stopped at a horseshoe glowing orange in the coals. You trust him? He fought beside me, Elias said. Saved my hide once. Men save each other for money, too. He met her look. Not him. The door creaked open. Boone returned with a small sack and a warning look. Word's spreading. A patrol's coming through tomorrow. You better move before daylight. Taya tightened her grip on the coat. Then we'll move now. Elias nodded. Appreciate it, Boone. Don't thank me, Boone said. Just don't die in my town. They stepped back into the street. The saloon lights painted their shadows long and bent. Taya caught sight of a poster nailed to a post. A crude sketch of her face, half accurate. Words beneath. Wanted. Apache Girl. Dangerous. $50. Her hand trembled near the revolver tucked at her side. Elias tore the poster down, crushed it in his fist. Ignore it, he said. She looked away. You can't erase paper. Maybe not, he said, but we can outrun it. They cut through an alley behind the saloon. The air smelled of stale beer and dust. A man staggered from the shadows. Deputy Bram Kersey, badge crooked, eyes glassy. Well, if it ain't the lonely rancher, he drawled. His gaze slid to Taya. And who's this pretty shadow? Elias stepped forward. Keep walking, Kersey. Kersey smirked, hand twitching near his holster. Word's worth 50, Crane. Split it fair? Elias said softly. Try it. The deputy's smile froze. The standoff stretched, dust swirling in the lantern light. Then Boone's hammer struck inside the forge, sharp as thunder. Kersey flinched. That was enough. Elias shoved him aside, grabbed Taya's arm, and they ran toward the bridge at the town's edge. Behind them, Kersey's voice echoed, drunk and vengeful. You won't make it far, Crane! They'll skin you both! They crossed the wooden span just as gunfire cracked from behind. Splinters flew, the mare reared, Elias fired, once the shot snapping a lantern post. Flames licked the railing. The bridge caught like kindling. Go, he yelled. They galloped into the dark while the fire roared behind, painting the sky blood red. When they finally slowed miles out, the town was a distant glow, the bridge burning like a second sunrise. Taya glanced back once. You always leave places like that? Only the ones that try to kill me, he said. The road west wound through cracked ravines and dry grass that whispered like paper. Dawn burned behind them, a faint red smear where the bridge had gone up in flames. Elias Crane rode ahead, scanning the ridges for riders. Taya Nantan followed close, wrapped tight in his coat, eyes half shut against the wind. The desert stretched endless, a sea of gold and bone. You always make friends that easy? Deputy started it. Looks like you finished it. He almost smiled. Not sure it's finished yet. They rode until the sun climbed high. When the heat grew mean, Elias spotted a line of telegraph poles in the distance. Town's near, he said. Stay close. Keep the hood up. Kalichi Bend sat in a shallow bowl of dust and smoke, built from warped boards and desperation. A saloon, a general store, a few tents. The wind carried music, tinny piano, laughter too loud. Elias tied the mare behind an old stable, then led Taya through the narrow side street. Place smells like whiskey and trouble, she said. That's the perfume of civilization. Inside the saloon, heat and noise hit them like a fist. Men crowded the bar, boots stomping to a broken rhythm. A man with a fiddle played faster than anyone cared to listen. Elias guided her toward the back. Boone was there, hammering a horseshoe on a small anvil by the stove. Thought you'd be halfway to Mexico, Boone said without looking up. Had to swing back, Elias replied. Need supplies. Water, ammo, medicine. Boone lifted an eyebrow. And a miracle, probably. Taya stood beside the wall, silent, scanning faces. A few cowhands stared too long. Elias turned slightly so she was behind his shoulder. Boone noticed. Poster's already up, Boone murmured. $50. Saw some Kersey this morning bragging about it. Man doesn't bleed easy. Should have burned hotter, Elias muttered. Boone handed him a canteen. Word is Pike's men set camp by the ridge east of town. They're asking questions about you. Elias nodded. Then I'll make sure they keep asking the wrong ones. Taya tugged his sleeve. We can't stay. They'll see me. Soon as we get what we came for. A poker game clattered nearby. One drunk stood, pointing toward them. Hey, that's Crane, ain't it? The rancher from Dust Hollow. The room quieted. Elias turned slowly. You got something needs saying? The man hesitated, then backed down. Nah, just thought I knew the face. Boone's hammer fell again, sharp. Sit down, Hank. The music stuttered back to life. Elias leaned closer to Boone. You still got that back door through the forge? Always. Leads to the alley by the freight wagons. Good. He looked at Taya. We move now. Boone packed a small satchel, bandages, dried beans, 2 boxes of shells. Take this, and Crane, watch the ridgeline. Norcross's buyers have been sniffing around too. Something big's coming. Elias gripped his arm once. You ever get tired of saving me? Every time, Boone said. They slipped out the forge door into the alley. The stench of coal hung thick. At the corner, Taya froze. Across the street, Lieutenant Pike was dismounting in front of the sheriff's office, 2 troopers behind him. Elias cursed under his breath. Too soon. Pike looked older in daylight, eyes hidden behind smoked spectacles, smile polite as ever. He handed a paper to the sheriff, Taya's wanted notice, and pointed toward the saloon. Elias and Taya ducked behind a freight wagon stacked with barrels. Pike's voice drifted across the street, rate slow. She's armed, dangerous, and traveling with a man answering to Crane. Bring them in alive if you can. Taya whispered, alive if you can means dead if you must. Yeah, Elias said. That's Pike. They crept along the side of the wagon, keeping low. A horse stamped nearby, snorting. A trooper turned. Elias pulled Taya against the wall, breath held. The trooper walked past, too focused on his cigar to look twice. When the moment passed, Elias nodded toward the far end of town. There's a livery road, leads north out the canyon. They moved fast through the alleys, boots silent on sand. A bell rang. Someone had spotted movement. Pike shouted orders. Gunfire cracked, shattering glass. Elias spun, fired back once. A trooper dropped. Keep running, he barked. They reached the stable. The mare neighed loud, kicking the stall. Elias slung the saddle up, jumped astride, pulled Taya up behind him. Bullets chewed into the walls as they burst through the gate. Pike's voice roared behind them, clear and furious. Bring them down! The mare thundered down the slope, hooves pounding dirt. The town shrank behind, shouts fading under the wind. A bullet whined past Taya's ear. She turned, fired once, the revolver bucking. A rider tumbled from his horse. Elias glanced back. Nice shot. She reloaded, eyes cold. He aimed first. They rode hard until the valley opened wide. The ridge behind them glowed with heat and dust. Elias slowed the mare near a dry creek bed, both of them panting. Now what? She asked. He looked west where the land dipped toward the hills. We find the river. The one they stole? Yeah, and maybe what's left of your father's land. Taya touched the scar on her wrist, the firebird mark. If the river's gone, then we'll dig another. She looked at him, half doubt, half something else. You really believe that? He met her eyes. I gotta believe something. Behind them, thunder rolled though no clouds hung. Pike's patrol would regroup, follow the trail of hooves and dust. But for now, the desert was theirs alone. Two fugitives riding through the wind toward a truth buried deeper than gold. The canyon narrowed by midday, heat rippling off the rocks like glass. Elias Crane slowed the mare at a rise, scanning behind. Dust still hung far back, thin but steady. Pike's men hadn't lost the trail. Taya Nantan shaded her eyes. How many? Too many, Elias said. They'll reach the pass by nightfall. They rode through twisting gullies where the air felt trapped. The mare's breath came harsh, hooves kicking loose gravel. When the first bullet whined off the stone, Elias didn't flinch, just dug his heels and turned down a side path. Hold on, he shouted. The narrow trail dropped fast toward a bridge of warped timbers spanning a deep cut in the earth. Below, a dry riverbed shimmered like old glass. Taya looked back, saw riders closing in. 3, maybe 4. We won't outrun them. Then we outthink them. They thundered onto the bridge. Wood groaned under the weight. Halfway across, Elias pulled the mare to a stop. What are you doing? She said. He jumped down, grabbed his flask, splashed liquor along the railing. Finishing what they started. Taya understood. She struck a match, tossed it. Flames crawled fast along the dry wood, curling bright under the midday sun. Gunfire cracked. Splinters burst near her arm. She fired back, one shot, then another. A rider spun from the saddle, fell screaming into the gorge. Elias climbed back up. That'll slow the rest. They galloped off the far end as the bridge behind them erupted, smoke billowing skyward. A mile ahead, they stopped among the rocks. Elias dismounted, checking ammo. Taya slid down, breathing hard. "They'll blame you," she said. "They already do." She crouched beside a boulder, reloading. "How long till they find another way around?" "Couple hours, maybe less." Taya glanced east. "That's not long." He studied her face, sweat-streaked, jaw set. "You done this before?" "Running, always." He chuckled once. "We make a fine pair." The sound died quick. The smell of smoke still carried on the wind. Taya looked at the canyon below. "That bridge," she said. "You didn't build it." "No, Norcross's men did. For the mine runs." She kicked at the dirt. "Then burning it was justice." He nodded, loading another round. "For once, maybe it was." They moved north through the ravine until the sun sank behind the ridges. The heat bled away, replaced by the dry chill of evening. Shadows stretched long over the rocks. When they stopped, Elias built a small fire hidden between two stones. The flames flickered low, throwing light across their faces. Taya unwrapped her bandaged wrist, tracing the scar. "You really think the river's still there?" He poked at the fire. "I think Norcross wouldn't waste men guarding nothing." She studied him. "You trust Boone?" "Yeah." "Then why'd you leave without him?" "Because he's smarter than me. He'll know when to run." Taya gave a short nod. "Maybe we should have stayed." "And hang in town square by sunrise?" "No thanks." Silence stretched between them. The fire popped. Far off, a coyote yipped once, lonely and sharp. "You said you rode with Pike," she said. "Once." "What was he like?" "Clean boots, dirty orders. Thought the world was a chessboard. Every piece expendable but his." She looked into the flames. "He killed my father." Elias turned to her slowly. "You sure?" "I saw the scar on his neck. My brother cut him there before they shot him." He leaned back, exhaling. "Then we've both got debts." She glanced up. "Debts can't be paid with more blood." He gave a weary smile. "Out here, that's the only currency anyone takes." They packed again before dawn, leaving the ashes to fade into dust. By the time the sun rose, the canyon floor glowed red, the smoke from the burned bridge still a thin ribbon on the horizon. As they climbed toward higher ground, the sound of hooves reached them again. Faint but closing. Elias stopped, knelt in the dirt, touching a set of prints. "New horses," he said. 5, maybe 6. Not just soldiers, trackers. Taya tensed. "They'll catch us in the open." "Not if we vanish first." He looked toward a cut in the ridge, a narrow slot of shadow leading down into scrubland. "There," he said. They turned the mare into the gap. The world went silent except for the grind of rock under hoof. Sunlight cut through in slivers. At the bottom of the slope, Elias stopped. A small spring trickled from the stone, barely a handful of water, but enough to gleam. He knelt, let it run through his fingers. Taya watched, whispering something in Apache he didn't catch. "What's that mean?" he asked. "River remembers," she said, "even when men forget." He looked up at her, then at the horizon. Dry hills rolling toward a sky too big for mercy. "Then maybe we follow where it remembers." She nodded. "And if it leads back to them?" "Then we finish it." Behind them, a gunshot echoed, faint and distant. The first scout finding the burned bridge. The sound bounced across the canyon like a warning bell. Elias stood, wiping his hands. "We better keep moving." They mounted again, riding north through the narrow pass. The mare's hooves struck sparks against the stone, fading behind them like the ghosts of all the fires they'd lit. By nightfall, the desert had cooled to iron. The stars hung low and sharp, mirrored in every shard of dry rock. Elias Crane led the mare along a narrow wash until the canyon opened into a hollow ringed with black cliffs. The air smelled faintly of metal and rot. Taya Nantan dismounted, eyes on the stone wall ahead. "This is it," she said. "You sure?" She pointed to a pile of boards half buried in sand. "The old well. They sealed it after the burning." Elias ran a hand over the boards. The wood was warped, carved with the faded symbol of Norcross Company. He jammed his knife under a plank and pried. The board split with a crack. Cold air breathed up from below, damp and old. "There's water under here," he murmured. "Not just water," Taya said. "Proof." They worked together, clearing debris until a narrow shaft yawned open. The smell rising from it was earthy, metallic, like blood and rain mixed. Elias tied a rope to the mare's saddle, tested it. "You're not climbing down there," Taya said. "I'm lighter on sin than you think." He gave a crooked smile and started down. The shaft was tight, lined with stone that glistened faintly. At 20 feet, his boots touched ground. He struck a match. The light flared, revealing a tunnel slanting west. Timber supports half-rotted. The ground damp. On the wall, white crystals caught the flame. "Boron and silver," he muttered. "Nukeback." He moved deeper, matches hissing one by one. In the final chamber lay rusted mining tools, collapsed carts, and a wooden chest half buried under rubble. He knelt, pried it open. Inside, wrapped in oilcloth, were ledgers stamped Norcross Mining Co. He flipped one open. Rows of numbers, payments, names. Pike's signature again and again beside shipments labeled Waterline, Cottonwood Flats. "Damn you, Pike," he whispered. A faint echo answered. Boots scraping stone. He looked up. "Taya?" Her voice drifted down. "I'm coming." "Don't! The supports are—" A beam groaned. Dust rained down. She ignored him, climbing quick, the lantern swinging at her belt. When she reached the bottom, she held the light up, illuminating the wall. Etched in soot was the firebird, wings spread over a spiral wave. "My father carved this," she said. He worked this mine before the soldiers came. They forced him to show where the river ran beneath. Elias traced the carving. They drained it, turned the underground flow into Norcross's supply. Taya opened another ledger, eyes wide. This shows every payment to Pike, to the fort. They called it security maintenance. It means bribes. He nodded grimly. This is the proof you wanted. A sound broke the silence. The sharp crack of a pistol echoing down the shaft. Visitors, Elias said. They doused the lantern. Voices floated from above, muffled but close. Crane, you down there? It was Pike, calm, confident. Don't make me come fetch you. Taya's fingers tightened on her revolver. He followed the smoke. Elias whispered, We go out through the side shaft. Keep low. They moved quickly through the dark, guided by the faint trickle of water underfoot. Another shot rang, sparks showering from rock. Come on, Elias urged. At the tunnel's end, faint light showed, a fissure opening onto the cliffside. He shoved the ledger bundle into his coat, then helped Taya squeeze through. They emerged halfway down a ravine, the desert below bathed in ghost-blue moonlight. Far above, voices barked orders, ropes creaking. Climb fast, Elias said. They scrambled down the slope, sliding on loose gravel. A bullet struck the rock near his head, showering sparks. He cursed, fired back blindly. Taya steadied her aim, fired twice. One shout echoed, then silence. At the base, they ran for the scrub, ducking behind a cluster of mesquite. Elias ripped his coat open, checking the ledgers. Intact. What's in those books? She asked. Enough to hang half the territory. Taya looked at him. You could walk away now. Burn it all. He shook his head. I've been walking away my whole life. The wind shifted, carrying smoke from the burning bridge hours south. The night hummed with insects and far-off thunder. Taya knelt by a small pool where the underground water seeped through stone, clear as glass. She dipped her hand, let droplets fall back. River remembers, she whispered again. Elias crouched beside her, washing blood off his knuckles. What's it say now? That it's waiting. For what? For someone to make it right. He looked toward the horizon. Then we'll give it a reason. They saddled the mare, riding northwest along the dry stream bed. Behind them, Pike's voice roared orders from the mine mouth, echoing like thunder through the canyon. At the ridgetop, Taya glanced back. Flames danced far below where Pike's men set the tunnel alight. The orange glow licked the dark like the world was burning again. You think he knows what we found? She asked. He knows enough to kill for it. Elias pulled the ledgers tighter under his arm. And now he knows I won't stop. They rode on through the night, moonlight flashing off the silver veins in the stone, a ghost river glittering beneath their path. The morning came cold and white. Elias Crane crouched near a dying fire, reading the ledgers again while the sun climbed slow over the ridges. Each page was a confession. Dates, names, payments in neat columns. His own name appeared 3 times. Next to it, the word guide. Taya Nantan stirred under the blanket. You found yourself in there, she said quietly. He closed the book. Yeah, you led them. I didn't know what they'd do. But you led them. Elias didn't answer. He stared at the horizon where smoke from the burned mine still smeared the sky. I thought I was mapping water lines. They said the Apache were moving camps, planning raids. I believed them. She sat up, pulling his coat tighter. You believed what was easier. He looked at her, the lines in his face deep as dry riverbeds. You think I don't know that? Taya's voice was flat. My father said men like you carry fire in their pockets and call it law. He threw the ledger into the sand. Then I'm trying to put it out. She didn't move to pick it up. The silence pressed between them, heavy and real. After a while, Elias stood, shoulders bent. I'm heading to Marisol's place near the border. She's got friends who can get this ledger where it needs to go. You can come or you can go your own way. Taya hesitated. You think the law will listen? No, but a newspaper might. She rose, eyes hard. Then I come. They rode south all afternoon. The desert changed color as they went. Red to gray, then to pale yellow near the mesas. Buzzards traced circles high above. Elias rode silent, lost in his own dust. Flashback crept uninvited. The smell of oil and smoke, the glow of tents burning. His younger self shouting orders he didn't mean. A woman screaming for water. Pike's voice behind him. Orders, Crane! Light it! He blinked hard, back to now. The sound of hooves pulled him out of memory. Taya glanced sideways. You see ghosts too? Only when I close my eyes. Then don't close them. They reached a cluster of dead mesquite at dusk. Elias dismounted, pulled canteens from the saddle. He poured the last of the water into one cup, handed it to her. She looked at it, then at him. You first. He drank a mouthful, passed it back. Satisfied? For now. When night fell, the air turned sharp. They camped beneath a ledge where the wind couldn't find them. Elias unrolled a blanket, set the ledgers in a saddlebag. Taya sat across the fire, face lit gold, eyes unreadable. She asked, What did you lose that day? He stared into the flames. My sister, 16. Pike said the Apaches took her. Truth is, we set the fire ourselves. I heard her cry in the barn, but I didn't go in. I waited for orders. Taya said nothing. The fire cracked softly. Elias added, I thought if I kept living quiet, maybe the desert would forget me. Taya looked at the firebird mark on her wrist. The desert forgets no one, but it watches what you do after. He nodded once. That's all I'm trying to do. A far-off howl echoed across the plain. He reached for his rifle. Coyotes, he said. Not those, Taya murmured. Men. Elias listened. The sound came again. Boots on gravel, metal clinking. He doused the fire with sand. Moonlight spilled over the rocks, outlining 3 figures moving along the ridge. Time 400 mms. He whispered, They found us. Taya grabbed her revolver. Pike? Not yet. Scouts. They crawled to higher ground, waited behind boulders. The riders stopped below, talking low. Elias caught a name. Kersey. He smiled dark. Deputy lived. Then he dies twice, Taya said. When the first rider approached the ashes of their fire, Elias fired once. The man dropped without a sound. The others scattered. Gunfire cracked back, bright in the night. A bullet nicked Elias's shoulder. He grunted, shifted position, fired again. Another fell. The last one fled into the dark, shouting. Elias slumped against the rock, blood soaking his sleeve. Taya crawled over, ripping cloth to wrap the wound. You'll live, she said. Good, he breathed. Still got work. She tied the knot tight. They'll bring more by dawn. Then we move before they do. He picked up the ledger, wiping dust off the cover. His own name stared back at him like a sentence. Taya caught his look. You carry it because you want punishment. He met her eyes. Because it's the only truth left. They packed fast, the night thick around them. The mare snorted, restless. Elias mounted first, offered a hand. She hesitated before taking it. As they rode off, the eastern sky began to pale. Behind them, smoke curled from the campfire they'd buried, rising like a thin ghost. Taya said, You think ghosts forgive? No, Elias answered, but maybe they stop following when you face them. She looked ahead, the wind tugging her hair. Then face him soon. Plan to. They rode in silence as dawn bled across the desert. The wind carried the faint sound of hammering metal. Distant, rhythmic. Pike's men, reforging pursuit. Elias touched the saddlebag, feeling the weight of the ledgers, of names that wouldn't stay buried. By late afternoon, the land changed again. The sand softened, giving way to dry brush and scattered cacti. A thin riverbed cut across the plain, mostly dust now, but green reeds clung stubbornly near a trickle of water. Elias Crane reined the mare to a stop and pointed toward the hills. Marisol's place is over that ridge. Taya Nantan looked ahead. You trust her? Enough to risk dying near her porch. They reached the small adobe house at dusk. Smoke curled from a chimney, mixing with the scent of chili and soap. A lantern hung on the porch, swinging in the wind. Elias dismounted and called, Marisol! A woman appeared in the doorway, short, gray hair braided tight, a rifle in her hands. When she saw him, her face cracked into a smile that wasn't entirely friendly. Elias Crane, she said. You look like sin rode you hard. He grinned faintly. It did. Got company, too. Marisol's eyes shifted to Taya. She lowered the rifle a fraction. Apache girl, huh? Brave of you, bringing her here. She's the reason I'm still breathing. Then she can stay. Marisol stepped aside. Come in before the night gets mean. Inside, the room smelled of coffee and cedar. She poured 3 cups without asking questions. You running from Pike? Elias nodded. He and Norcross. Marisol snorted. Those two still poisoning the desert? Worse, Elias said. They turned water into profit. We've got proof. He set the ledger bundle on the table. Marisol untied the string, flipped through pages. Her eyes widened. My God, these show bribes to the fort, the mine, even the governor's office. Taya watched her carefully. Can you get them to someone who'll listen? I can. Try. I know a newspaper man in El Paso. Honest enough. Foolish enough. Elias said, We just need it out before Pike finds us. Marisol gave a small nod. I'll send word tonight. But you won't have long. Once they learn the ledgers are gone, the border'll light up like Christmas. They ate in silence. Afterward, Taya washed her hands at the basin, staring at her reflection in the water. You think people will care? She asked. Marisol answered first. They care about money. If the mine closes, they'll care plenty. Elias leaned back in the chair. Justice always needs a price tag. Marisol looked at him. And guilt needs somewhere to sleep. You staying the night? Just till dawn. Then I'll keep watch. Later, outside, the stars were fierce. Elias sat on the porch steps, smoking. Taya joined him, wrapping the blanket around her shoulders. You told her everything, she said. Not everything. She knows enough to hang you too. He flicked ash into the dust. If it helps hang the right men, worth it. She looked at the horizon. My people believe truth was water. It can cleanse or drown. Elias smiled faintly. Guess we'll see which one we get. Inside, Marisol moved quietly, packing supplies. When she stepped out again, her face was serious. Got word from Boone. He's coming south with wagons. Said Pike's men are sweeping the valley. Kersey's with them. Boone's risking his neck for us, Elias said. He said you'd do the same. A rumble cut through the quiet. Hooves, distant but closing. Marisol's head snapped toward the ridge. That'll be them. Elias stood. How many? Half a dozen, maybe more. Taya loaded her revolver. They won't take us alive. Marisol pushed a coton, small sack, into Elias's hand. Powder, matches, enough to make noise if you need it. He nodded. We'll need it. They moved fast. Marisol led them out the back door toward the barn. Boone's wagon lights flickered in the distance, bouncing along the trail. Go, Marisol said. I'll stall them. You'll get killed, Elias warned. She smiled thin. I've lived long enough to die usefully. Gunfire shattered the night. Riders topped the ridge, torches blazing. Elias and Taya sprinted to the wagon as Boone cracked the reins. You two sure know how to throw a party, he shouted. Just drive, Elias yelled back. The wagon lurched forward. Bullets tore through canvas. Taya fired from the back, knocking a torchbearer off his horse. Sparks fell like fireflies. Marisol's porch exploded in flame as Pike's men stormed the house. Elias saw her silhouette at the doorway, rifle flashing once, twice, before the roof collapsed. Marisol, he shouted, but Boone pulled him down. She bought your time, don't waste it. They barreled down the trail, wheels bouncing over rock. A rider closed in on the left. Elias swung his rifle, fired point blank. The man pitched sideways, disappearing into the dark. Taya shouted. More coming! Boone steered hard toward the dry wash. Hold tight! The wagon dropped into the arroyo, wheels slamming the ground. The riders hesitated at the edge. Elias lit a match, tossed it into the powder sack. Explosion thundered behind them, rocks raining down. Smoke filled the canyon. Boone coughed, laughing. That enough noise for you? Plenty, Elias said. They slowed only when the ridge hid them from view. Boone stopped the wagon under a stand of mesquite, breathing hard. We lost him, for now. Elias climbed down, staring back at the faint orange glow where Marisol's house had stood. Taya touched his arm. She chose her way. Yeah, he said softly. Now it's ours. The desert night burned with moonlight, bright enough to see the end coming. Elias Crane rode ahead of Boone's wagon, the wind sharp on his face. Behind him, Taya Nantan clutched the saddle horn, hair loose and dark as smoke. Each mile south brought them closer to the border and to Norcross's dam. Boone's voice carried over the wind. You really mean to hit that damn wall? Only thing holding this country hostage, Elias said. Break it, and the truth breaks with it. Taya looked toward the horizon where a faint glow marked the company camp. How many guards? Too many, Boone said, but not enough to stop a fool. They reached a ridge overlooking the valley. Below, Norcross's wooden dam rose like a scar across the riverbed. Logs stacked high, torches flickering along the catwalks. Water glimmered behind it, trapped like breath in a lung. Elias dismounted, pulled the ledgers from his coat. If we die here, make sure these reach someone who can read. Boone crossed his arms. If we die here, won't matter who reads what. Taya climbed down, her eyes fixed on the water. That's our river. It was, Elias said. Time to give it back. They split the powder into 3 bundles. Boone rigged fuses while Elias scouted the path. Taya checked her revolver, fingers steady. You sure you want to go up there? Elias asked. Been tied to a tree before, she said. Not again. They crept down the slope, keeping low. Crickets hummed. The dam groaned under its own weight. At the base, the air was cool, damp with mist. 2 sentries stood near a wagon. Boone tossed a pebble, drawing them aside. Elias moved fast, silent as dust, knocking one out cold with the rifle stock. Taya took the other. 1 shot, clean, timed 400 pounds. Quiet enough, Boone muttered. They planted the first charge under the main brace. Elias set the fuse, whispered, That's 1. A shout echoed above. Torches moved. Someone's here. Hell, Boone hissed. We've been seen. Then hurry, Elias said. They ran along the catwalk, planting the second bundle. Shots rang out. Wood splintered. Elias returned fire, dropping a guard from the tower. Taya climbed the ladder toward the top gate. Pike's voice boomed from across the dam. Crane, you just don't know when to quit. Elias looked up. Pike stood on the opposite side, flanked by men, rifle gleaming. Come down before I put you under that water you love so much. Can't drown what's already dead, Elias shouted. Pike laughed. You think blowing this dam fixes anything? You'll flood every ranch from here to Dust Hollow. Then maybe they'll remember who owned it first. Boone lit the first fuse. Sparks hissed along the cord. Pike saw it, cursed, and fired. The shot grazed Boone's shoulder, spinning him. "Go!" Boone yelled, clutching the wound. "I'll light the rest." Elias started toward him, but Taya shouted from above, "He's coming!" Norcross himself emerged from the shadows near the control gate, pistol drawn, coat flapping like a flag. "You stupid bastard, Crane," he snarled. "You'll ruin everything." Elias raised his rifle. Already did. They fired at the same time. Norcross staggered, fell against the railing. The pistol clattered into the water below. He looked at the hole in his chest, then at Elias. "You can't save them all." Elias said, "Don't have to. Just need to start." Boone struck another match. Blood soaking his sleeve. "Time's up!" Elias grabbed Taya's arm, pulling her toward the far ramp. They dove behind a boulder as the first explosion tore through the dam. Wood screamed, bolts snapped, and water roared out like a released animal. The blast flung them backward, dirt raining down. For a heartbeat, everything turned white and soundless. Then came the rush, the river breaking free, tearing through the valley, swallowing the torches and the shouts. Boone stumbled toward them, coughing. "You two still breathing?" "Barely," Elias said. Taya looked toward the collapsing wall. In the chaos, Pike clung to a beam high above, shouting orders no one could hear. Then the second charge went off. The beam cracked. Pike fell into the torrent, swallowed whole. It was over in minutes. The dam folded into itself, vanishing under a flood of its own making. The roar faded to a low rumble. When the water finally calmed, the moonlight reflected on the river's new skin. Wide, alive again. Boone sank to his knees. "Lord have mercy. We actually did it." Elias looked at the bodies drifting among the wreckage, then at Taya, who stood still as stone. "Your river's back," he said softly. She touched the wet earth with her hand, then her forehead. "Now it remembers." Boone groaned, holding his shoulder. "We better move before reinforcements show." Elias nodded, retrieving the soggy ledgers. "We take these south. Let the papers tell what we can't." As they mounted, thunder rolled somewhere far beyond the border, real this time. The night smelled of rain. Not smoke, not blood. Taya glanced once at the broken dam. "You think it's justice?" Elias met her eyes. "It's a start." They rode out beneath the shattered stars, water rushing behind them like a promise, kept too late. Dawn rose pale and wet over the valley. The river that had slept for years now moved again, wide and loud, chewing through broken timber and old sins. Elias Crane guided the mare along the ridge, boots dripping, shirt stiff with mud and blood. Boone followed behind, left arm bandaged tight, steering the pack mule loaded with what remained of the ledgers. Taya Nantan rode between them, her face calm but eyes red from smoke. Below, the ruins of Norcross's dam steamed in the morning light. Where fire had ruled, water now claimed everything. Charred beams floated like bones, and along the bank the desert had begun to bloom, tiny green shoots piercing the ash. Boone broke the silence. Reckon the towns downstream'll curse us before they thank us. Elias said, They'll have water. They can curse me from their gardens. Taya looked back once. The river took what it needed. They rode south until the land softened, the color shifting from rust to the pale gold of grass. Midday found them near the border where a line of cottonwoods marked the crossing. There the world felt quieter. Birds returned, real ones, not ghosts. At the edge of the river they stopped. Boone dropped from his mule, groaning. This is where I turn back, he said. Someone's got to tell folks up north what really happened. Elias nodded. You sure you can make it? Been bleeding half my life. Another few miles won't kill me. Boone grinned weakly, then clapped Elias's shoulder. You get that truth printed, Crane. Make it worth her dying for. Marisol's name hung between them. Elias swallowed, then passed Boone one ledger, wrapped in oilcloth. Take this one. Insurance. Boone tucked it under his arm. Hell of a story, friend. He looked at Taya. You take care of this fool. Time 300. I will, she said. Boone mounted and turned north. Within minutes, the dust swallowed him. Elias watched until he was gone. Then he faced Taya. You could still cross alone. There's safety past the ridge. Safety isn't what I want. What then? She looked at the flowing water. To live, not hide. He nodded. Then we find a place to start. They followed the river downstream where it widened and bent through low hills. Hours later, they came upon a hollow shaded by willow and mesquite. The ground was damp, the smell of life returning. Elias dismounted, testing the soil. Good land, he said. Taya knelt, pressing her palm to the mud. It remembers us. They built a small camp there that day. Elias rigged a lean-to with canvas from the pack, while Taya gathered driftwood and set a small fire. When it caught, the smoke rose clean and white. As evening fell, the sky turned copper, then deep blue. The river glimmered in the fading light. Taya sat by the fire, sewing a tear in his coat with thread from her sash. Elias said quietly, I never thought I'd see this valley alive again. She didn't look up. You didn't see it die the first time. He nodded, accepting that. The sound of frogs drifted from the bank, a song the desert had forgotten. Taya reached into her pouch, pulled out the small talisman of the firebird. The bronze had darkened, edges worn smooth. She placed it on the rock beside the fire. This belonged to my mother, she said. She used to say fire destroys only what resists it. Elias stared at the charm, the bird rising through flame. Then maybe we finally stopped resisting. She smiled faintly. Or we're just too tired to burn. He laughed, once quiet and low, the first honest sound in months. Later, when the fire died to embers, Taya rose and walked to the water's edge. The moon climbed, painting the river silver. She knelt, dipped her hands, and lifted them high. Droplets sparkled as they fell back. Ayana, she whispered. It means peaceful river, my true name. Elias joined her, standing close enough to feel the cool spray. Then Ayana it is. She looked at him. And you, Elias Crane, what will you be now? He thought for a long time. Maybe just a man who stopped running. From across the river came a faint rustle. A figure on horseback paused at the far bank. For a heartbeat, both froze. Then the rider raised a hand, friendly, and turned away, heading north toward the settlements. Boone keeping his word. The wind softened. Frogs sang louder. Ayana took a deep breath. So this is what freedom sounds like. Elias smiled. No gunfire, no orders, just water. They stood there together as the current whispered through reeds. The river carried reflections of the moon, the stars, and the ruins of what once held it prisoner. At dawn, Elias carved a small cross into a cottonwood trunk. Beneath it, Ayana pressed the firebird charm into the bark. The symbols caught the first light, gleaming like two halves of the same promise. Earth and flame, guilt and grace. He turned to her. We'll build here. Small house, big quiet. Until they come again? Then we remind them who owns the river. She nodded, slipping her hand into his. The water murmured, endless, steady. Above them, a hawk wheeled once, its cry cutting through the morning air. The same sound that had followed Elias across 1,000 miles, now sharper, cleaner, free. He looked up, then at her. Looks like even the sky forgives slow. Ayana smiled. But it forgives. The river shimmered, carrying their reflection south into light. Under the soft glow of the returning river, the story of Elias Crane and Ayana comes to rest. Two souls who carried their pain across a land of dust and silence until love and courage gave them peace. The desert that once buried their sins now blooms again, and the wind carries a gentler song. Maybe that's the lesson for all of us who've lived long enough to know that time itself forgives slow. But it does forgive. If this tale stirred something in your heart, if it reminded you that second chances can find us even after the harshest storms, share your thoughts, or tell us a moment when hope found you. Your voices keep stories like this alive, passing them from one generation to the next, like campfire light shared hand to hand. And if you'd like to ride with us again across the wide country of the heart, click like, subscribe, and ring the bell to join our circle. Until the next story, may your days be quiet, your nights kind, and may you always find water where the world once swore there was none.